Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Duxy Gaming and the Day 2 update for the Reign of Ours Raider. There's quite a lot to go through in this episode because I managed to get a really good and efficient play session in last night. So I've got lots of upgrades and lots of updates to go through. First thing I wanted to go through is a tech that a lot of people are using, and I kind of figured it out myself, but then when I saw everyone else using it, it seemed that it was definitely the right thing to do. Because of the way this character is built, you don't really get a defensive skill that works really well. So what I decided to do for my spare 4 link is start using Mana Forged Arrow support with Power Charge on Crit, Ensnare and Arrow, and Frenzy. What this essentially means is when mapping, you have maximum Frenzy charges, you're going to have Ensnare and Arrow on difficult enemies, and then you're going to get Power Charge on Crit. This isn't up 100% of the time in non-juice maps, but on bosses and where you need it, it always is. Ensnare and Arrow works really well because it makes enemies take more projectile damage and it slows their movement. Now this combined with Val Reign of Ours works amazing on bosses. Val Reign of Ours maims, which slows the action speed of the enemy. You've then got Ensnare and Arrow, which slows the enemy again. So you actually get a super safe bossing environment because you can see any spells or attacks coming a country mile away, and it's felt really good. This is something I would recommend you put in any bow build, to be honest. As long as you're getting the mana to proc these regularly, I would definitely use it. So on to the progress. I've got Eta and Exarch down. I decided to just beeline to them. I had an issue that I run out of Val Orbs, so I couldn't get my map completion done whilst trying to hunt down the pinnacle bosses. And I had a few maps dropped, so I just decided to use one of each tier for each boss up to 16 to get those bosses Void Stones so that I can then get a bit better map progression. So I didn't worry about map completion because I didn't have the Val Orbs and I didn't have the currency to buy any. So I just went through, killed a tier 13, 14, 15 and 16 and got the 2 Void Stones. We've transitioned to crit. I've got a bow that is okay. It needs multi-modding, but I don't have the recipe yet. So we might as well go through the gear while we're here. So I bought this fractured bow for not very much currency. It was like 15, 20 chaos, I think. It's only fractured T3 cold damage. And then I've just rolled it with Deafening Essences of Wrath and ended up hitting 18% attack speed and a Duff suffix. I managed to annul off the suffix. So I've now got T1 attack speed, big lightning damage, big cold damage. What I'd look to do is multi-mod this, crit chance with attributes, and then Ellie Pen as a prefix. That'll work really well. That'll be a decent bow, and that'll do me until I really need to start hunting down my in-game bow. In terms of Crucible mods, it's just got physical damage and crit strike chance that are any good. I did have a slightly better tree, and then I merged it with a bow that had some really good mods on it, and it lost all the good ones. So I think if I want to keep this bow, I'll probably hunt for a second bow that I can merge in the forge and then hopefully get some decent stats because there's some really big things you can get on bows. The helmet is really nothing. It's just a mana cost of attack helmet rolled with life essence. The quiver, I purchased the fractured base for about 5 to 10 chaos, I think it was. And then I've just crafted it using essences until it's something that I like. This is not ideal at all, but it's good enough for now, and we'll get that changed as and when I need to. The rings are same as before. Need upgrading, just life, resistances, some damage. The amulet, exactly the same as before. Crit multi-attributes and non-channeling skills. I've bought a 6-link chest because they're really cheap now. I think this is like 15 to 20 chaos. And then I've just rolled it with a life essence until I've got something that works. Haven't done my implicits yet. I did manage to roll increase effect of non-cursoras, but I've not really targeted any implicits yet. The gloves, again, same as before, not particularly very good, need upgrading. I had a couple of lesser orbs, rolled them, ended up getting rage on hit, but it's not that great because it's every 1.2 seconds. What it lets me do, though, if we do end up going up here and getting the arrows, is it allows me to take nearby enemies are intimidated while you have rage, which is a nice damage boost. The boots, same, 3-step assault boots. Belt, the same. Everything else stays the same. The only thing I've added in is a cluster jewel that I bought for 1 divine, which is Sadist and Overshock. And then I haven't really got any jewels that slot into them at the moment because I'm out of currency. But these should hopefully get some juicy bow jewels into them. And then we can go and take this last jewel socket and then see if we can get a decent lethal pride because we're taking so many nodes near that area. So I've had some decent drops. I've had 2 raw divine drops. Tusion's given me a divine orb. I've had a cortex drop, which I still need to sell. I'm just either going to run it or wait till the prices go up a little bit. So overall, we're sitting on a healthy amount of currency. We've got 2 divines, 38 chaos, an exalt, and then not much else because I haven't really been farming much other than essences an expedition, but those I haven't been farming hard yet. I've just been trying to get those pinnacle bosses down, but the essences are starting to get there. So Atlas completion is 82 out of 115. As I say, I sacrificed a bit of this to push through to get the pinnacle bosses done. Once I've got a few more Varlobs from Tusion, I can start on that again. Or now I've got a little bit of Chaos, we can buy some Varlobs to get the rest of the maps cleared up. I've got no issue with the DPS of the build. I've done a corrupted, unidentified Minotaur map that was absolutely fine. And then I've done, obviously, the 2 pinnacle bosses, which I think Exarch would have been deathless, but he went crazy and did about 3 or 4 ball phases in a row. And I ended up dying because I'm not very good at those phases. But overall, yep, super, super smooth. In terms of Atlas progression, same as before, Expedition, Essences. This comes in handy here, this Eldritch Gateway, because we do want to get over here because you get another node that gives you more chance to get Expedition, but it gives me a chance to get more Tusion and more Danig, so a couple more points and I've got that. It's just much more efficient than having to path all the way up here because I'm going to take the Exarch nodes eventually if I ever get a Divine Vessel to drop. Still not had any yet, so I don't have any of my Pantheons unlocked. Again, might be something I need to buy from trade. But overall, I'm really happy with the build. It's super smooth. I'm not going to transition yet. I'm enjoying this build. I'll probably go and take Uber Elder and Maven down with this build and then see where I want to go with it. It's going to be, yeah, a bow build, probably a Deadeye. I don't know yet whether it's Tornado Shot or whether we're going to try and do some returning projectile builds. I just don't know how they'll map. I still think Tornado Shot's going to map better, and that's all I want to do. So I need to have a look at how those builds look in mapping, if it's worth it, because I'm not really interested in bossing. So we'll go and do a quick map showcase just to show you where we're at. Now, my gems aren't even flipped yet. I'm still leveling them up to 20 for the most part. Some are there, so I do need to flip them, which we'll do after this map. So yeah, I'm really happy with the progress at the moment, considering we've not really put much currency into it, and it is, for me, day 2. So we'll go and do a T60 map. We need to do one for completion anyway. So we can do this volcano, which is already corrupted, which is nice. And then we'll stick Exarch in, even though I don't have any Burning Ground immunity. As you know, we'll do Maven because we need to collect Maven anyway. And then I'll go through kind of what my next steps are for the build. Now, it still feels fairly comfortable. I have died where I've juiced Crucible too much. And got absolutely annihilated by some Chaos mobs because I have minus 60 Chaos resistance at the moment. So that's probably the next step. Get some Chaos res into the build so I don't fall flat to like poison and dots and things like that. And we could definitely get the DPS up more. Like the bow at the moment is pretty mediocre because I need to multi-mod it. But I need to decide whether I want to do that or whether I want to push and get an even better bow. We'll take the spine bow for potential forge shenanigans. So at the moment, I'm also looking out for a bow that I can forge into my current one because the tree is really bad on my bow. It has base crit of 0.4%, which is good, but that's all it's got going for it. So who we got here? We got Rog. I'll skip Rog just for the sake of, I don't want to make the video too long. There's another bow there that we could take, but I think we've got enough in our stash to go on with for now. Wow, I thought it was that way. Good one. Oh, it's temp change. That's why it feels bad. I've also just realised it's Ellie weakness, which is not good because I'm literally just res capped. So not ideal for running through a T16 map with lots of Ellie damage. But if we die, we die. It's not a big deal. I'm only like level 90. It's not hard to get XP at this level when you're running red maps. So Maven's decided to give him a bit of a heal, which sucks, but easy enough. So we'll jump out of the map. So yeah, that's how the build feels. It's super comfy. That wasn't a particularly nice map, but we went through it okay. Next upgrades, I need to get some chaos resistance, really, and I think that's going to be upgrading the rings because they're both terrible. So what I'll probably look to do is get some fractured ring bases so that I can then roll them in harvest with chaos. If I can get amethyst rings, I'll do that because I can pretty much cap my chaos rares with 2 rings. We'll see how it goes. I could really do with minus mana cost on 1 more ring. Just in case I get a Crucible tree that adds another support gem into it, I'm pretty sure the mana will go on top of that as well, which means my mana will start to skyrocket out of control a little bit. But yeah, next upgrades, chaos, resistance, and try and find a tree that I can merge into my bow to get some more benefits from the lead mechanic. So I thought we'd just go over the character before I log off, and just a couple of things to go over in terms of how I've got my damage a bit higher than I thought was possible. So the character is level 91. I've just hit over this second. I'm kind of really happy with that level. If I wanted to transition in something like Tornado Shot, Lightning Arrow, Ice Shot, I can do that at level 91 and have a pretty comfortable tree. One thing I wanted to point out was the shock value that I'm getting on bosses, which is about 30% at the moment. And there's a few reasons for it. We're not even using a lightning skill. So I want to go through how you can scale your shock damage if you want to and you're running a crit build. Now, this node here is very important. Hits have 25% chance to treat enemy, monster, elemental resistance values as inverted, which means if the enemy's got plus 50 after all your exposure and that, every 1 in 4 hits, they're going to be minus 50. What that means is they take a ton more lightning damage, which means you shock a lot more. And that's really, really important. So all I've got here is increased non-damaging elements when I crit. And then my cluster jewel here, I have increased effect of lightning elements. And on bosses that don't have immunity against these sort of things, I'm getting 30 to 35% shock value, and I've still got much more damage I can get on the build. So I think with a bit of work, I could get it up to 40, 45%. And the more shock you get, the more damage you do on bosses. And I'm definitely notice it on single target. Obviously, for big pinnacle bosses, I'm not getting that sort of value, but I'm still getting 15 to 20, which is still a big, big damage increase. It's not something you have to do. It's just something that comes with taking this node. Every now and again, you hit big, the shock goes up, and that shock stays for 4 seconds. So as long as you're hitting really quickly, you're always going to have a big shock value on the enemy. It might take a few seconds to ramp up, but you will get a big, big shock value on the enemy that you're hitting. And then there's just a few other nodes just to discuss that I've taken every now and again for situational reasons. If you take enemies cannot deal critical strikes on a mart, that's amazing for bosses. So if you go into Syrian Exarch, put this on, he can never crit you. So if you can take his normal attacks, you never have to worry about spiky crit damage killing you because he's always going to be marked. Same for things where there's just one boss in the fight. For things like Ubrelder won't really work because you're only going to mark one of the enemies. But for most of the big boss fights, this works really, really well. I've also been using this mastery here, which is immune to poison if you have more evasion and armor on your helmet, or immune to bleeding if you have more armor than evasion. I've just got a pure evasion helmet, so running this one mastery makes me immune to poison. One thing I wanted to go through was defenses, because that's the thing I'm getting most people messaging me about, saying I'm dying hundreds of times. I can't stay alive in red maps. So I just wanted to go through the bare bones of my character, and he's not set up very well. And if we go to deaths, I've done the first 2 Void Stones. I've done lots of Crucible, and I've died 10 times. And it's not because I've got some secret tech defenses. It's all about getting used to the playstyle for bows and particularly Rain of Arrows. So if we look at my sheet defenses, I have 1.5k armor, 30k evasion, just max resistances, hardly any chaos res. And then we've got our spell suppression and our ailment immunity. Spell suppression, ailment immunity, super, super important. They make a big, big difference. But other than that, I don't stack any armor at all because it's just not worth it on this side of the tree. Even if you run determination with flash, you might get up to 15k armor, and that is nothing. It's not going to save you from a big hit. You'd be better off going full evasion and trying to avoid that hit entirely. Now, people will say you'll get one shot at one point. Yes, you probably will, but it's really, really rare. There aren't many enemies, unless you've got a map that's got 2 types of fizzes extra, or it's got lowering your resistances by 12%. There's not really much that can one-shot you. To take 4,000 in one physical hit is very, very unlikely. Even in bosses, I've taken a big hit from Minotaur. I didn't die. I was close, but I didn't. So it's just all about the playstyle. You've got to hit and move, be quick, use your Mana Forge arrow support to slow the enemy, and look out for his telegraphed attacks. Now, there is an issue with Rain of Arrows, and that is an absolute cluster of arrows, and it can be very difficult to see what's going on. You can also use your ballistas to tank for you. So if you've got a boss, you can put your ballistas down, move the other side. Most of the time, your boss is going to target these ballistas. When you see him turn into face you, you drop your ballistas again, you move to the other side, you hit. And that's why I do bosses that I can't melt within a few seconds. that when you're slowing bosses and you've got Vile Rain of Arrows, you can slow the boss enough that you should be able to take him out without even moving. And I still need to add my physical taken as elemental because I've not unlocked Gravicius or Corell's crafts yet. Adding these two in, I'm going to feel super, super comfortable with mapping. But even as things are, I've not really taken a death that wasn't avoidable. I died once to Exarch because he did lots of ball phases. I died once to Eater because I messed up. And then I've died in Crucible. And that's essentially it. I think I've probably done a couple of horrible T16 corrupting maps where I might have died once. But overall, for a bow character that's got, through the campaign up to level 91, I'm really happy with 10 deaths. But it's not difficult. I'm not a particularly good player. I just am used to this style of play. I know when to move. I know when to stand still and trade. But overall, unless you're standing in tons of degens, tons of attacks, you should be able to stand there and trade because actual attacks that do physical damage, most of them are going to miss you. Physical spells, you're going to mitigate 50% of it. And then, like I say, work in some physical taken as elemental, get some more defenses. You could get endurance charges from an Enduring Composure Cluster Jewel if you wanted a bit more. There are lots of ways to get defenses into the build. I think that's it. There's not really much more to go through. Hopefully the next episode is probably going to be in a couple of days because I am working and I did go hard yesterday. So maybe just a few hours tonight and a few hours tomorrow. I'd love to get Uber Elder and Maven done, but I want to farm the keys myself. I don't want to buy them, so it might take a little bit longer. But I've got plenty to do in the meantime. I've got all my Atlas completion to do, Expedition to get stuck into, Essences to farm. I've got tons that I can get on with. That's it for this quick update. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.